Have you ever noticed how certain men, the quiet ones, the emotionally reserved ones, the men who don't seem eager for approval, tend to linger in women's minds far longer than expected? They don't explain themselves, they don't rush replies, they don't seem disturbed by uncertainty. And yet, they're the ones women often feel drawn toward. At the same time, there are men who give consistently, they check in, they reassure, they invest early and openly, and still, they're left confused, wondering why effort didn't lead to connection. They showed care, they showed interest, they showed availability, and somehow, that wasn't enough. So the question many men quietly ask themselves is this: why does emotional distance sometimes create attraction? Is it about being cold? Is it about dominance? Or is there something deeper happening beneath the surface of human psychology? Today, we're exploring that deeper layer, through behavioral psychology and Stoic philosophy, to uncover a truth that can feel uncomfortable at first, but ultimately freeing. Because this isn't about manipulation. It's about self-alignment, about emotional discipline, boundaries, and internal stability. This isn't about becoming someone else, it's about becoming grounded enough to stop chasing validation. And if you've ever felt stuck in patterns of over-giving, over-explaining, or over-investing, stay with me. This topic, why emotional restraint often creates attraction, is one of the most misunderstood discussions online. Some people reduce it to women like bad boys. Others say it's all confidence. But those explanations barely scratch the surface. The real mechanism has nothing to do with cruelty or emotional games, it has everything to do with value perception, emotional regulation, and self-respect. Stoicism, one of the oldest philosophical frameworks in human history, teaches a simple but radical idea: you don't control how others feel about you, you only control how you manage yourself. Your reactions, your emotional availability, your presence. And this is where many men lose their footing. They attempt to earn affection instead of embodying value, they pursue connection instead of standing firmly in their own lives. So let's break this down. From value psychology, to emotional detachment, to confidence, boundaries, patience, purpose, and ultimately peace. Because once you understand this, attraction stops being confusing. Let's begin with value. Humans instinctively desire what feels limited, earned, or selective. Scarcity increases perceived worth. When something is always available, the brain assigns it less significance. This isn't manipulation, it's basic psychology. When a man is constantly accessible, constantly adjusting, constantly accommodating, emotional tension disappears. There's no contrast, no uncertainty, no reason for the mind to linger. But when a man's attention is selective, not withheld, but prioritized, his presence carries weight. Not because he's distant, but because his life already has structure. Stoicism emphasizes self-valuation first. When you operate from internal worth instead of emotional need, your energy shifts. You stop seeking reassurance, you start projecting calm certainty. And that shift is felt, not logically, but instinctively. Now let's talk about emotional detachment. Detachment is often misunderstood as indifference. It's not. Detachment means releasing control over outcomes you don't own. When a man becomes emotionally dependent on how someone responds to him, power quietly shifts away. He explains more, he reaches out more, he gives more. And paradoxically, the more he gives, the less value is felt. Why? Because emotional dependence signals instability, and instability triggers withdrawal. Stoicism teaches mastery of the space between emotion and reaction. You still feel disappointment, you still feel desire, but you don't act impulsively on it. That pause, that calm restraint, restores presence. Mystery isn't secrecy, it's independence from validation. And independence is rare. When a man redirects emotional energy toward purpose instead of approval, attraction often follows naturally, not because he's trying, but because he's centered. Women aren't drawn to emotional volatility, they're drawn to emotional gravity. Now let's clarify confidence. Confidence isn't loud, it isn't performative, it doesn't announce itself. True confidence is quiet consistency, it's emotional steadiness under uncertainty. Neediness seeks reassurance, confidence remains intact without it. The difference is subtle, but immediately felt. Instead of trying to appear confident, build a life that doesn't depend on external approval. Progress creates grounding, purpose creates stability. And stability is magnetic. Which brings us to boundaries. You cannot be attractive without respect, and you cannot be respected without limits. Many men mistake compliance for kindness, they say yes when they mean no, they remain available at the cost of self-respect. But unlimited access reduces value. Boundaries aren't barriers, they raise standards. A grounded man doesn't argue for his limits, he simply enforces them. And that calm enforcement signals strength. Respect follows. Patience is another overlooked force. In a culture driven by immediacy, restraint stands out, rushing disrupts rhythm, forcing outcomes kills tension. Patience communicates certainty. A man who can wait is not desperate, he trusts his trajectory. And that trust allows space for curiosity to grow. Attraction develops in absence as much as presence. Finally, purpose. No trait outweighs direction. A man without purpose drifts, emotionally and relationally, a man with purpose generates gravity. Purpose isn't spoken, it's lived. When your life is oriented towards something meaningful, your presence changes, your silence carries weight, your attention becomes selective. Women don't want to be a man's destination, they want to walk beside someone who's already moving forward. And that leads us to the final Stoic lesson: gratitude without expectation. Expectation creates attachment, gratitude creates peace. When you stop measuring your worth by someone else's response, emotional freedom begins. You stop chasing, you stop forcing, you stop bargaining with outcomes. And that inner stillness becomes one of your strongest traits. Here's the truth. Women aren't drawn to men who disregard them, they're drawn to men who respect themselves. Men with values, men with purpose, men who move calmly through uncertainty. The goal isn't to be chased, the goal is to become unshakable. And when you do, respect, attraction, and peace follow naturally. My name is James, and this is the Thinking Space. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll uncover how Stoicism can help you master self-discipline, silence, and control, the traits that make you truly untouchable.